The sixth point of the Elven Star of the Sun is a very important development spiritually. The sixth point relates to the word sorry in the seven word system and what is called in the Sufi planes of consciousness the immaculate state. So we're approaching purity of being. We're trying to clean up our act to the nth degree so that we live a pristine life without making any oh, excuse me. We're living a pristine life without making any obvious errors of behavior or interpretation. It's the highest point of the ego awareness, really. So it has to do with conscience, the ability to see ourselves from another's perspective, and a commitment to become a better person. So there is this term which I use frequently called reflexive self-consciousness. Self-consciousness, seeing yourself reflexively from someone else's point of view. Whenever we say anything or whenever we do anything, at the same time as presenting, we try to imagine what would be the feeling, what would it be like to be on the other end of how we are and who we are and what we're doing. That's called reflexive self-consciousness. And it's very high spiritual practice. We always have awareness of the other. We don't lose ourselves in selfishness. It's a stepping stone towards humility. And you see this behavior from time to time. It's not as rare as you might think. The condition of being saintly is something that we can notice in really quite everyday and ordinary people. They're not really ordinary at all. You see it often in healthcare situations. You go to the doctors and then you see the nurse and the doctor and all of them serving the principle of health and well-being for everyone. And they work late and they work hard and they do the job. They do the job well to a professional standard and they care to get it right and they mind personally if they get it a little bit wrong and if the customer isn't satisfied. That level of service is consistent with saintly behavior. So if we look around expecting saints around us, we see them. And we can also see that quality to some extent, in some way, in some circumstances, within ourselves. Each of us is capable of a very high level of service. Now, typically, that's for somebody that we love, but by no means is it always the case. Our species has within it a certain profound level of kindness where we would risk our lives to save the life of another, as is firefighters do this, and you jump in the river to save a drowning man, even if your swimming wasn't so strong, and so on. This is actually present quite deeply within our species. So, despite the terrible behavior of some members of our species, most of us are really nice, really good people. And you have to have that kind of attitude to life to unlock the sixth point of the Elven Star. And that helps you to develop a clean, clear conscience. And if you constantly practice this ideal of always doing the right thing and always having a clear conscience, then you'll end up becoming quite saintly. Now, mine is the Cancer 8 degree, which is called Rabbits Dressed in Clothes and on Parade. It's to do with modeling ourselves on a guide. Now, I've taken this quite literally and I found a Sufi guide. And when I was trying to improve myself on a very serious level, really did this. This is what I was doing. I was on a spiritual quest. All I did was copy everything he did, his mannerisms, his manner of speech, what he said. And I became a teacher of the material that he was teaching. And I presented it exactly as it had been presented to me every time I taught for a period of years, 10 years maybe, until from my students' point of view, some had seen both me and him teaching and said to me, it's really clear where I got my information on whom I'm modeling myself. So that's how I went about it. And I did manage to rescue myself from having been quite rough and ready as a rugby player and so on, into somebody that would be a suitable model for other people, um, to a certain extent anyway. So we can see how this whole process of modeling yourself on a guide is really a requirement. I don't think it's possible to really pull yourself up to another level unless you find somebody already at that level and you do what they do. It's a particular process in Sufism. It's called tasawwuri, where you do what I've just described. You model yourself exactly in their speech, in their behavior, in their mannerisms. You just walk the way they walk. You do this thing on a physical level, and something mysterious happens. You, you kind of settle in to a template of that way of being. Now that's only the starting point. The template is where we begin, and then we develop it. So having learned how to do it in the way that your guide has done it, then you learn how to do it in your own way. You develop upon that. Now, that process of developing the sixth point of the Elven Star is particular to me. You would have your own Sabian symbol for the sixth point of the Elven Star, but you can see how you can interpret your Sabian symbol uniquely for yourself. You don't have to understand it the way somebody else would. You can interpret it intuitively your own way, and then find your way to develop a clear conscience, to become a better person. And for you, you might already be very saintly and rather self-deprecating and altogether too humble in every situation. It might be that you've got to become the boxer in the ring or something. It might be very different for you. But the principle is the same. You have to find what it will be, the path of your awakening to a higher level of consciousness. So on the sixth point of your Elven Star, you're given one of the biggest challenges of your life, really, how to perfect your personality.